Hey all, my name is Matt Schillerstrom and I work at Harness as a product marketing manager. I'm here today talking to Thomas from Nagarro. And a few weeks ago, we spent some time at Chaos Carnival 2023, where they were the Ferris Wheel sponsor and participated in a workshop, presentation, and a panel discussion. So, Thomas, could I have you give a little intro of yourself?
Sure, thanks, Matt. I'm Thomas Roka-Aardal. I'm working at Nagarro as a CTO, uh, based out of Oslo, Norway, and we're very happy to be one of the sponsors on the Chaos Carnival event this year as well. I work across a lot of different industries and verticals, horizontals, as a CTO, and one of the core interests I have is related to resiliency. Also, security is a core topic for me. But been working in this industry for 20 plus years now, and very happy to be a part of this podcast with you, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming aboard today. So, can you tell us a little bit about Nagarro and what you've been working on lately?
Absolutely. I mean, Nagarro is an interesting company. It's one of the fastest growing IT services companies on the planet at the moment. Actually, coming out of COVID and all of this, still very strong and really a fast growing company. Close to almost 20,000 people now across 30 plus countries. It's a company that's working a lot with, I would say, the product side of software engineering. A lot of customers or a lot of people out there are probably already using software that Nagarro's built in their everyday life. Everything from lock solutions or lighting systems or automation, and we're becoming quite pervasive in the market, but still, one of the, I would say, small big players. And when it comes to industries, of course, we work across a lot of industries, most industries, and have a set of very interesting business units that cater to both horizontal and vertical needs. And from the resiliency side and chaos engineering side, of course, we have dedicated practices for and COEs for this, where as a CTO, my role is also to help, sponsor and bring all these interesting, I would say, spices to the table to all the clients that are out there, and help grow this business. Yeah. So
Yeah, I
that's
like your analogy. Yeah, I like your analogy there with spices because a lot of times there's a different recipe for different industries based upon like regulations that they have for reliability and resiliency. Um, that's great. And I think, at Chaos Carnival, we had almost 2,000 participants. And what was interesting, the persona is we had site reliability engineers, developers, QA engineers were there quite a lot too, and then management. And what was great to see is that all of them were trying to invest more in resilience and reliability because in this, economic period, and this upcoming recession that they keep talking about, right? Like you can't just put everything on a giant server and expect it to be reliable. They need to right size it, do testing. And it was great just to see everybody talking about like shift left testing, like giving the developer access to test for reliability. But what do you see in the verticals in the industry that you're working with?
Well, as you said, I mean, one interesting thing is that there are a lot more, I would say, personas or roles getting involved with resiliency these days, and more so in the future, I think, as well, because what used to be, let's say, some kind of boring cost center thing where it was just about uptime, now people realize that with all the digital investments being made, basically resilience is becoming a core platform and foundation, where it really is talking about differentiating yourself from your competitors, or bringing the value to your customers. And we see that as you said, the developers are interested more so than before. We see, because of the whole DevOps thing, that this is very much more mature than it used to be. And even management, definitely, not just SREs or what traditionally was driving this resiliency. Now we're seeing that management is really being interested in
Mm.
supporting some of the key trends that the analysts are talking about, like the Gartner digital immune system.
Yes.
And Forrester's been talking about this as well. So
Mhm.
we really see that it's becoming interesting and valuable across many more levels in the organizations. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great. Can you tell us a little bit about like the framework that Nagarro has built out and how you're kind of mapping that to the leadership that you're talking to?
Yeah, so I think everyone venturing into the world of resiliency, everyone is always talking about where do you start? Where should we put what should our ambition be or our goals be? How do we measure success and all things that you would typically do for any kind of investment. So what we've done is we've really invested a lot into a framework of our own where basically we can start out from the very beginning and look at assessments where we can find the current status, the maturity level of resiliency for our clients. And we typically have assessments being done, and then we have a maturity model that helps place this particular organization into a sort of maturity, like a CMM type of model with
Mhm.
various levels, so that you can get the initiative started based on the right type of expectations, based on the right type of goals, and wherever this client is in this landscape. And that's a huge value to a lot of clients, where they can sort of benchmark themselves and see where should we put our efforts. Basically, the assessment toolkit and the maturity model gives us this framework, this baseline. We can then bring this into a more iterative approach, where we can start with the first steps, which are usually about getting observability, right? This is the
Yeah.
the core part of going forward. Is without this, we really can't do much, at least not in a kind of scientific engineering
Yeah.
way. So we have a
Yeah.
reference architecture to get started with observability, with a dashboard, so that it allows us to measure and actually see what's going on.
Hmm.
Then we have a continuous resiliency testing framework, and a testing framework we call Photon, basically integrating with all the well-known and established technologies out there, Harness, Gremlin, etc., where we can define SLOs. We can do the resiliency testing, monitoring, benchmarking, etc. And the final part is when we actually build this and go into the solutioning and actual implementation of this, where we have some well architected frameworks and partnerships with hyperscalers, so that we can actually do all this modernization. We can do the automation and build redundancy into the systems, and use stuff that is emerging technology like AI, ML
Hmm.
uh, of technology as well. So basically, it's a big investment in a very complete framework for getting clients and customers to start off and actually live with and evolve with their resiliency journey.
Yeah. No, that's great. What I learned at Chaos Carnival, just because you had a workshop presentation and there's just a lot of discussion going on, is that if you can't measure your reliability in a seamless way, you're never going to improve it. And like a lot of your coworkers, like Dushyant, were talking about this assessment that y'all do, and it's not just like one team that you can help scale. It's like you're actually helping the whole enterprise scale quickly too, right? It's not just going to be this multi-team path over the course of years and years. You're able to like go into an enterprise, complete that assessment, work with the leadership to just like understand the model and then the approach, and then kind of also just shift that culture too, just so people are comfortable with that, learning from failure and testing upfront and putting in that investment. So really, really outstanding. And we'll have links to those presentations too, from this podcast that other people can like click into from Chaos Carnival. So that'll just be great to share. Can you tell me a little bit, so like back in 2016 when I was starting my like chaos engineering and reliability journey, it was like this grassroots, effort that I had to like just constantly give presentations to leadership and convince them. What would you say like to the audience listening today, if it's a developer, an SRE, and they're really passionate about what you're saying, like what would be their steps to like working with you, or just like how to approach it with their boss and leadership if they're not thinking the same?
Right. I think I mean a lot of leaders and management are already maturing to this, of course. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
starting out on a journey and you're really interested in chaos engineering and resiliency in general, and you really want to see how can we get some investments and anchoring and interest into these topics, I think it's very important that we see how we can link this stuff to value, because what we're seeing now is that leadership always want to know how do these investments tie into something that actually generates value or reduces costs or something like that. And I think we're seeing now that with all the focus from the analyst companies these days on everything being digital and everything actually being up and
Yeah.
available at the time, if it's possible to link any kind of initiative to those uh, uptime or availability type of measures, and then at the same time explain, if we can't measure this, we can't really do investments and see how this really impacts. I mean, where do we get the most bang for our buck?
Yeah.
And also observability is like a very natural way into all of this. And if we're able to talk about it in those terms as well, observability, not just use all the technical terms,
Mm-hmm.
the logging, the analysis, and this becomes very technical, right? But if we are actually talking about how can we observe, use some of those terms. That's one part of this. That's kind of like, how do we talk about it and how do we explain it? But there's also, I think, now so many things available: toolkits, reference architectures, frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to just start as well and just
Yeah.
demonstrate through actual results that wow, what's this one product team doing? They keep having much better results than these other teams. What's actually happening? And try to do that as a kind of by learning by doing and proving, basically, that these investments actually make sense. And those investments, they don't have to be as big as before, because of all this stuff, the innovation that's actually taking place, and all the available things that you can actually implement in your local projects. As for instance, this is something that does generate a lot of value for a lot less investment than you used to. So you don't always have to ask for permission now, because
Yeah.
you can just do it. So those are some of the. I think it's gone from a grassroots thing, which is
Mm-hmm.
after a while a little bit difficult, because
Mm-hmm.
really want that leadership attention and focus. You always get to a point where, wow, this is not really as easy to kind of push this up into the organization. But now that we know that so much focus is going on, that everything, I mean, today we're seeing as well, chaos engineering is broadening. It's becoming a topic that's becoming more about resiliency in general.
Yeah. Yeah.
And uh, there's just so many ways to actually get that level of attention that you want today. So I would recommend just going out and doing it, basically,
Yeah.
as the the easiest ways.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I remember from Chaos Carnival, like your coworker Duchamp was talking about like some teams using resilience mechanisms in their codes, like timeouts, retries, and circuit breakers. And yet people just use them, but they don't really test them or tune them. And he was able to work with one of your, customers, right, just to test it and prove that, it wasn't failing over appropriately when the circuit was tripping. And now again, he didn't want that business to wait until an incident happened in the future to prove that, right? Like he was showing proactive testing can find it immediately and it's simple to fix. But I guess what you're saying too from an individual contributor is like tie it to the value. So like when you're talking to your boss, don't just say, we're gonna trip a circuit breaker and see if it fails over, but talk about like the customer experience or I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes we talk to clients about what kind of story are they telling about
Mm,
chaos engineering. I mean, what's the actual information we're sharing? Are we just sharing data and just saying, "Hey, this happened. Look what we did," or are we actually able to convert that into something which can talk about the end users, the customers, the partners, the actual consequences of this in the end?
mm-hmm.
And I think through, I mean, even on game days, when you're talking about, what are we
Yeah.
expecting here, um, how can we actually talk about this in a way that makes sense for the end users, not just the technical things that'll happen, but how will this be perceived? What will clients or customers think? What will partners think? What will the community or our industry think if something like this happens? What will happen to our brand?
Mm-hmm.
What will happen to our revenues, our shareholders? And 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 that too creates some kind of I would say buy-in from higher levels of the organization. Just the fact that we're able to talk more about the story in itself
Mm-hmm.
rather than just the technical impact or implications of something going on. And as you said, we can do a lot of shift left stuff where we do things sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
We can demonstrate. It's not always that easy to talk about a theoretical thing to
Yeah.
management, all right? But we can try, and we can also do shift right, right? We can then
Mm-hmm.
take what we've learned and actually start doing stuff in production. And if we're
Mm-hmm.
actually doing that stuff in production, it'll become very, very obvious
Yeah.
to everyone. So you won't really need to ask for that attention anymore. You'll actually see it. So yeah, many different ways to actually, I would say, get that level of attention and buy-in, and
Yeah. No, that's great. One, just, if there are other CTOs listening to this podcast here, or other leaders, and, they haven't invested in this yet, or, they haven't really heard much, where would you tell them to get started?
Well, I mean, talk to your partners, talk to the vendors you already have, or actually even start including more and more of this in the discussions you have with your peers, and if you're doing, I mean, one thing we've started seeing is that a lot of customers are using RFIs to actually
Mm-hmm.
get more market feedback from service providers, vendors, to see what's actually possible here, because you can get a lot of valuable information from that, and it will probably impact your investments a lot more if you actually go through an RFI kind of phase with your vendors. um,
Yeah.
I would I would definitely engage a lot in the communities out there
Mm-hmm.
that are available, of course, and participate on conferences like this, because the network in itself is also very, very valuable. And you can also see that from a CTO perspective, that there's so much going on. There's actually so much innovation happening that you have to dive into it yourself. And I would actually also recommend being an active part in these projects, yourself, not just defining and being some kind of, I would say, like an ivory tower architect looking at this
Hmm.
from top down, actually getting your hands dirty and doing hands-on work. Because also a lot of these things are now, I would say, catering to not just the infrastructure or operations or reliability engineers, use cases, but they're actually targeting, you know, how do we set the architecture, the reference architecture for our company going forward? How should we structure this in a way that we can build on for years and years, which really is or should be top of mind for most CTOs or that type of people going forward.
Yeah, no, that's a great example too, just because you're right. Like you're building an enterprise architecture for the next few years, and especially like the people that you hire, right? Like you want them to trust what they're building on and innovate and not have to worry about like reliability or resiliency. So that's great to hear. I really like it when CTOs like get their hands dirty and really understand what's happening, because you it just provides great oversight and everything. So that's awesome. Um, if we talk a little bit more just about Nagarro and like what your vision is, you think for reliability and resiliency over the next few years. And I know like Chat GPT might escalate that vision, just with fast forwarding things, but what do you think?
Well, I think it's always interesting to look into the future and have some kind of I would say vision, as you said, what's going to happen. And then because advances in technology are going so fast, like you mentioned in ChatGPT, right? And I think we always have to stop and rethink and reassess our vision, especially now. But from Nagarro's perspective, I think we will definitely see uh, chaos engineering and becoming a bigger part of the broader resiliency movement or domain. And I also think that some of these new advances will give us amazing opportunities to make sure that we're building, these solid foundations for all the digital initiatives going forward. I think one of the main things that'll happen very shortly, and we're seeing this right now with AI, is that a lot of things will become much easier for us to do now. Because if we focus on chaos, the general idea was, how could we disrupt, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we're still limited to our human minds and our technical switches. What switches can we flip and what can we do? And what AI can help us with in the immediate future is, of course, to look at the vast space of everything that's possible and give us much smarter ways of actually triggering the right things, which might be the wrong things, but triggering
Yeah.
those
Yep.
in a way which gives this a lot more credibility. Because, just like in security, if you're doing security testing, you can never test everything. That's not possible. It's not possible to invest that kind of money and see the corresponding value out of it. You have to kind of time box it or focus it. With resiliency, we've seen the same thing. We're kind of taking, a portion of something, and maybe it's not the whole enterprise. Maybe it's a set of products, or it's a set of technologies or platforms that we're targeting, or infrastructure. And now with AI, we can give a lot more credibility to the whole movement, and it will boost productivity so much. And from Nagarro's perspective, we've been seeing that, okay, we're doing some kind of let's say playbooks or automation. We're doing some kind of testing. All of those results, basically, when we're doing this over time, becomes a huge library of things that are possible to do. We can use things like AI now, where it's completely realistic that we could do something in the short term, where we could ask the whole resiliency framework questions like, could you please schedule the next kind of disruptive session at the point in time where it would cause the least amount of problems financially for the company. And
Yeah.
those kind of things, I mean, would, and maybe we wouldn't even know ourselves, right? So it's a completely unplanned session. We don't know the results, but we actually can do things that are, you know, extremely interesting. And it kind of blows my mind that we're able to do this quite soon. But I do also think that there are other advances. We will see that resiliency, as I mentioned before, ties into a lot more business value concepts, so that this is no longer something that is done, let's say, on the back end. The toolkits, the interfaces, everything will just move continuously upwards in the
Mhm.
organization, and probably will have at some point in time management level initiation of these things rather than just reporting
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some of the things I think we'll see very soon actually happen with the movement. And of course, all the other technology advances will help promote this. It will automate this much more, and again, it's going to converge. We're already seeing that, you know, development, DevOps, ops, cloud, SRE, standard kind of SRE challenges, and all of this is basically enabling more and more people to have all this power at their fingertips, so that you can see this more as a kind of an innate ability of any
Mhm.
future architecture or infrastructure, as well as having that kind of thinking being built into many more roles in the organization. So I think basically we're at a point where now finally I would say it's gone from a grassroots movement into a
Mhm.
major trend by the big analysts. So now it's about how do we take that and actually start implementing. So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. Especially tying it back to what you said at the beginning with observability. If you have a great observability foundation and then you're using these like predictive AI tools to orchestrate reliability testing, I could hypothesize you could just say, you know, run this test with the guardrails of the observability that you set in, you know, and it can control that blast radius of impact really well. So that's, I love how you kind of tied that in together at the beginning, and it fits in well with what you said for the vision too. Anything else you'd like to touch on today?
Well, I'd like to say, you know, this is a very interesting field to work in. It's going to be a major field for years to come. We don't know yet, you know, what will the new roles be called, what kind of, and where will all the convergence happen. But I definitely want to say, you know, if you're looking to invest into your future as a career move, this is definitely one of the hot trends going forward. So, you know, everyone, I mean, we're hiring, other companies are hiring. If you look at this from a technology perspective as a CTO or an architect, something like that, then, you know, make sure you actually participate, join the networks, be a part of the community, and architect this into your actual enterprise architecture, both from an organizational perspective and also from a technical perspective. And from a management point of view, look at how you can actually measure and observe and actually be more involved in the core products, which most companies now realize we are a digital company. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, try to find those levers, and not just reports, but the ones that you can actually maneuver and manipulate yourself going forward, and create that vision for your company that we're going to be a company where this is all possible for us, and we can really say with a great degree of certainty and be accountable for having that kind of resilience in the products and the services that we provide to our market.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I'm excited for the future. So the past few months, even since Chaos Carnival, there's so many cool things coming out. So I love that. And if folks want to get a hold of you or Nagarro after listening to this podcast, what's the best way to do that?
I mean, go to our website, check out some of the resiliency engineering stuff that's out there. We already mentioned some of the frameworks, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as we said, network. I mean, reach out to me or anyone from our team directly. Find us on LinkedIn or whatnot, or through connections like the Chaos Carnival event. Please just to reach out. I mean, it's a very humble and very inviting community. So please just shout out and we'll talk.
Yeah, no, awesome. Well, Thomas, thanks again for being on the podcast here today, and thanks so much for sponsoring Chaos Carnival 2023. Just with all the participation, it was just brilliant what y'all did for us and the community. And look forward to working with you and having some more conversations in the near future on resilience and reliability. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Matt. Glad to be a part of this.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.